Hey guys, what's up? So I'm going to show you how to make a lyric video for hardcore metal music, just all the kind of stuff that you see out there. There's a million different ways to do it, so there's no really right or wrong. This is just kind of one way I approach it. So you can just take what you learn and apply it however you want to your videos. So we'll start with just setting up a basic scene, and then we'll learn more later. I'm going to split up all the videos just so they're not overwhelming. So we'll start with just setting up a scene. So we'll do a new composition, and I just kind of keep it at 720p. They're usually only for the internet anyways, so you don't really need to go much higher unless you want to wait around for rendering all that. So 720p, we'll just start with a 15-second composition. Okay, so I have a few graphics here that I pulled from the internet. I can post them later. So I just kind of have this dirty lens texture and just a grungy background. So just some basic stuff that I'm going to import. So we'll start with just putting the background in. So just like that, just drag it down. And then we'll throw this dirty lens texture over top. Before we do anything else, I'm going to go to layer, new, and add a camera. 35 mils, usually pretty good. Okay, and hit OK. Okay. So what we want to do before anything is make these layers 3D. So under this 3D checkbox, just turn it on both the layers. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take this dirty lens texture, right click, blending mode, and go to screen. So then it's kind of see-through and it just kind of looks like dirt on the lens. It's a little overwhelming though, so I'm going to go to color, levels, and I'm gonna just kind of crush the blacks on it a little bit and even the whites as well, so it's just a little more subtle. So that looks good. So what we'll do is go to camera and hit P on the keyboard, and then on the Z axis let's back it up a little bit. It's nice to get high resolution graphics so that when the camera's moving around a lot you can kind of, it doesn't cut off the edges or anything like that. So we'll move it back a bit, and then we'll go to our dirty lens texture. We'll hit P on that as well, and then we'll move that back in the Z axis as well. So that way, when you're moving the camera around, it kind of creates a nice sense of depth. We move it back even more, and you'll kind of see that kind of flies by first as it gets closer to the background. So what we can even do is duplicate this layer, and I'm just going to hit S for scale, and I'm going to unlink it, and I'm just going to turn it to -100, -100. There we go. So we just kind of flipped it, and we'll link it back up, hit P, and then we'll move this one back even more. Move it over a bit. Maybe we'll press S and scale it down a little bit just so you can kind of see more of it. There we go. I'm going to scale down the other one as well just a little bit just so we can kind of get more of it in there. So that way when we move the camera, we've kind of got like a whole 3 dimensions going. Cool. So maybe even move this back a little more, this one here. Okay, so then I'm just going to add a layer, new adjustment layer. So basically anything that you do to this layer, all the other layers it's going to apply to, especially in terms of color and stuff. So I like to add some color correction, just kind of get an idea of what I want to see. Sorry, not levels. I'm going to go to color correction. I'm going to add curves, and I'm just going to kind of cross process this, just make it look a little more grungy and vintage. So that looks kind of cool. And then lastly, I'm just going to add sort of a vignette. So we'll go to layer, new, and add a solid layer, and then effect, generate ramp. We'll turn it from a linear ramp to a radial ramp. And now we kind of want to make the outside black and then the inside white. And then drag the start of ramp down kind of the center. And then where it says end of ramp, we kind of want to expand it out. So that looks good. So then if we right click on the black solid we just made, go to blending mode, we'll do soft light. And then if you hit T, you get to opacity, and we can kind of turn that down a bit just so it's not so overwhelming. So there we go. That looks kind of cool. So the last thing I want to do is, you see all the videos kind of has like a shaky camera movement. So we're going to set that up too. So what we'll do is we'll go to Layer, New, Null Object. Now this null object, we'll rename it just so we can keep track better. We'll call it Wiggle Control. Doesn't matter what you call it really, I just like to do that to keep organized. And then, so what we're going to do is click Camera and click P on the keyboard. Then click the Option key. I'm on a Mac, so I'm sure it's similar on a Windows computer, but you'll just have to figure that out. So hit Option and then click on the keyframe. And then what we're going to do is type in wiggle bracket 0, 0 bracket. So this first number, this first 0, this number is how many wiggles are happening in a second. And the second number is how many pixels each wiggle can move. So go back to the wiggle control, that null object we just made. And in the effects presets, type in slider, and you'll see slider control come up. Drag 2 of those onto the null object, the wiggle control thing we just made. Now what we're going to want to do is go down to the camera here where we typed in this wiggle code and highlight the first 0 right here, and then click this parent, the little swirly icon, and drag it up to the first slider. So this is slider is going to control that number, and then we'll highlight the second 0 right here and we'll drag that up to the second slider. There we go. So now what we can do is we can control how much it's going to wiggle. And the reason I like to put it on a slider, you can just type in the number right here in the camera. But the reason I like to parent it to a slider is because that when the music gets heavier, there's a breakdown or whatever, you can kind of intensify how much the camera's shaking. So for now, let's just put in the first number here. We'll do, say, 1. And so that's how many wiggles, 1 wiggle a second. And then we'll put in 25, let's say, and that's how many pixels it's going to move each wiggle. So if we press space here and watch, it's a little slow just because my computer's recording. I'll turn it down to 1/3, so the quality's kind of shit, but you can still kind of see the camera's moving around. So that looks pretty cool. So the more you do, if we turn it up, say this 3 wiggles a second and this to 50, you can kind of see the camera's moving around a lot more, violently and intense. So that's cool. So I'm going to set this back down to 1 and say 25 for now. So that's pretty much how I would set up a basic scene just off the bat. So I'll stop here, and then if you want to watch the next video, we'll get started on doing text over music and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.